Hello there and welcome back to episode 26 of the State of Decay 2 coverage series. Today's episode is very important because we are going to be hearing about basically all the new features and enhancements in State of Decay 2. We will be hearing all of this information from Xbox Daily and their interview with members from Undead Labs. Here is the list of some of the major things we're going to hear about in today's episode. The new user interface and how it has been improved to show players more information on their community and its members. They also are going to go pretty in depth about how they are going about building their apocalyptic setting and adding in that apocalyptic environmental storytelling that has been beloved within the first one. They also go into some topics about the zombies and how they are creating the look and feel for the different zombie types. We also hear about how the glowing eyes on zombies were a result of a texture bug and were not originally intended to be a feature within the final product. We also hear a good bit about how character traits will shape how your community progresses and also the risks and decisions you will have to go through as a player. So with no further ado, let's get right into this in-depth and informative interview. I'll catch back up with you guys at the end. Buckle up, roll the interview.
We are here to talk about State of Decay 2. We saw the world premiere of the gameplay trailer on the Xbox briefing stage, and I'm so excited to be here with the guys. I'm here with Jeff, Richard, and Doug, part of the team at Undead Labs. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Glad you're here.
Now, we saw this extraordinary trailer. There was a lot going on there, and I thought we'd sit down. I'd sit down with you here at your studios and kind of go through it and have you guys tell us what we're looking at. So how's that sound?
Sounds great.
All right, let's get started here.
What would you do if the world you knew was gone?
Let's start from the beginning. Richard, I want to talk about what is happening here. It looks like the military has been overrun by zombies.
Yeah, so this was a military base that was established after the outbreak and has kind of turned into a refugee camp over time. People have been coming here for the protection of the army, and the government is pulling out of this camp. The army is leaving this camp, and these are the last set of people that are kind of left at the camp dealing with what's going on as the zombies start to overrun the camp without that additional protection that the army is providing.
Now, one thing that we saw here a little bit, if you were watching closely, was we saw co-op multiplayer.
Yes.
Let's talk about that, because I know it's been a huge request for the State of Decay universe, and now it's here. Tell us what we can expect.
As soon as the game shipped, my friends, everybody who made the game, all their friends got in touch with them and like, this is the best game, we love this game, it's my favorite zombie game, why isn't it multiplayer? And that is consistently the single most requested feature for State of Decay that we got after release of the first game. So we knew that we had to have multiplayer for State of Decay 2, and we spent a lot of time and a lot of energy, and we've got multiplayer in State of Decay 2, and it's really fun, it's really exciting.
Now, what can we expect with it? I mean, can I drop in, drop out? How does the progression system work? How does the loot work?
Anytime you want to play multiplayer with your friends in State of Decay 2, you can jump into their game as long as it's there and available.
Sure.
Or they can jump into yours if you've made your game available. We also have a new system that allows you to really quickly shoot a flare up into the air and pull from a set of volunteers that have, in their game, volunteered for service, and they'll jump right into your game as well. So we made it really easy to get into multiplayer. It's very drop in, drop out.
Richard, so now that we've got my group together, what is the co-op experience like?
So everybody that sort of volunteered or jumped into the host game, they're there to help out the host, to help them accomplish their objectives, build up their base and things like that. So they'll go out into the world trying to accomplish something specific. It might be a mission to go raid a police station, for example. We want to go scavenge there. And instead of in State of Decay 1, where you'd be doing that on your own, you can now kind of split up a little bit, divide the responsibility so that somebody's guarding the doors and making sure that no zombies are coming in from the outside while the people inside ransacking or making a lot of noise and doing their thing. Somebody might go say, hey, I saw a car down the street, I'm going to go get that so we can load it up and be ready to go as soon as you guys are done raiding this thing.
Right. So you're working together, like it could be exactly like that. Maybe we're not in the same room, but we're working to try to achieve an objective and really stay alive.
Exactly. Everybody's trying to accomplish the same goal, and definitely everybody's trying to stay alive, because it doesn't matter if you're in your game or in your friend's game, your character still will die permanently in the host game.
Let's talk about that for a little bit. What happens when you and I are in a co-op game? What do I bring back to my game in terms of experience and so forth?
So your character will still be progressing. You'll be getting all of the leveling that you'll be doing. State of Decay features a system where the different skills that your characters have level up as you use them in the world. So if you're doing a lot of shooting, you're leveling up your shooting, fighting, you're leveling up your fighting. And as you're playing in somebody else's game, you'll be loading up that character with various loot that you find in their world that isn't taking away from the stuff that they have. It's an additive experience. You're finding new stuff that they weren't able to find in their game, and you're loading all that stuff up, and you're able to take all of that back home.
Now, you mentioned something around permadeath.
Yeah.
That's scary, so let's talk about that, because you just talked about the stakes being high. Now they're significantly higher.
Right. Permadeath was a critical part of the first game because it makes it so that these characters that you're building up, that you're spending time with, they're real people. There are a lot of games out there to do a really great, successful job about telling you a specific story about specific characters, and if you die in those games, well, the real penalty that you have there is you're going to reset back a few minutes, you're going to play through that experience again. Those games are great, they're very fun, but the stakes are lower. We have countless YouTube videos that we're able to go to online and find people who have these characters that they love so much, they've spent so much time with them, and they die, they experience genuine anguish. They're very torn up, and initially they're torn up about the character and their passion for it, and sometimes they go through like the phases of grief when they're dealing with this, and eventually some people are like, I'm never playing this game again, but eventually they always come back.
Yeah, the key is permadeath, we believe, is absolutely core to the notion of building a real survival game, of feeling like your choices matter and the stakes are high.
Survival matters.
Yeah. But the key is you always want to make sure that if somebody dies, they can point to the mistakes they made, right? And that it's never just the game throwing arbitrary barriers in place or doing arbitrary things that cause them to die, right? So the reaction on the part of the player is very different as long as you're fulfilling that contract of if you die, it's your own damn fault, right? That's something that winds up being a very compelling and enjoyable experience.
At its core, State of Decay is a game about choices and consequences. Right. You chose to go out in the world to do this scavenging run. You chose to stay in that fight instead of bailing out and running away. You chose to go into this fight equipped the way you did, and the choices that you make there will affect the outcome for your characters, and the impact is real. The consequences are real.
I want to talk to you about the environment. What we saw here was a pretty distressed version of what looks like the Northwest, right?
Sure.
There's a lot going on there with the lighting and the engine and the art. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So State of Decay kind of takes place in what we coined in the first game as Faded Americana. And so it's sort of a place somewhere in the heartland. We used Eastern Washington a lot as references for what we wanted the game to look like. And
when you're designing and you're working on a post-apocalyptic world, what does that mean from a design aesthetic? Sure.
So it's a lot of distressed wood, distressed environments. We don't want to go too far with that. This isn't a game that's we want to make it feel real to the player. It's not too long after everything has collapsed. So you got to think of places that you've been to here within the last year or two that you've seen slowly fall apart, and you can pull from that to design how you want that world to look. The main thing I wanted to make sure we had with State of Decay 2 that I felt like we did okay with in State of Decay 1 was I still wanted the apocalypse to feel beautiful. And that's another part of it too, is we used to take road trips with my family to Denver every couple summers, and I would notice that east of the Cascades, whether it was Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, there was always, the smaller towns had sort of the same feel and look. I don't know if it was that part of the expansion of America. Everybody was kind of using the same materials and the same styles, but something that's been fun is that when people see the game, they tend to go, oh, that's my hometown, that's where I'm from. And so I like that anybody can kind of feel like that's where they're from, and that was definitely part of the goal going into it. So
yeah, and Larry, that's that feeling of this could happen here was something that was really important to us. There's lots of really great games out there that put you in fantastic settings in future urban cities or up on alien planets or in some fantastical past. But what we wanted with State of Decay was to really make it believable to you that this could happen in my backyard, right? When I'm seeing these things going, I can imagine being in my hometown or walking down my street where I live, and this is happening here, and it really helps contribute to that feeling of a simulated world rather than a kind of constructed fantastical setting.
Clearly we saw a lot of zombies there, so let's talk about what are some of the zombies that we're going to come across in State of Decay 2.
All right. Well, you got your standard zombies.
What is a standard zombie? What does that mean?
It's your normally everyday, ordinary Joe zombie. It's a person who's turned probably within the last couple of years. You know, they're rotting. There's a bunch of different versions of them. The initial zombies they're almost the fodder. They're kind of everywhere. They're still dangerous. They're still scary. You want to stay away from them, but they are part of the environment as much as, you know, trees and grass.
Yeah.
They have these glowing eyes that technically, I have to say, came from a point of view of, or came out of accidentally leaving off a shader on the original.
Sure.
And they look cool. I'm a huge fan of 80s movies.
It was a bug that you exploited?
It's
not a bug, it's a feature.
It's a feature.
It is now.
I love, I remember at the time, somebody asked me, like, well, why do their eyes glow? And I came up with a bunch of different reasons.
And Doug kind of stuck by his guns and said, yeah, it looks cool. At night, it's just awesome, right? And it is, yeah, it is. The more I played the game, and especially now with State of Decay 2 at the higher fidelity, and you walk into a house at night and you can just see those glowing eyes. It's very cool.
Well, and I mean, there's mechanical reasons for it too, right? Like they're dark. It's dark. You see those glowing eyes. You have to shoot zombies in the head. It makes it a lot easier.
I mean, well, one thing to keep in mind with State of Decay is that, you know, unlike almost any other game ever, there are no light sources other than the sun and the moon, and maybe at night if you throw a Molotov cocktail or something, you'll briefly light up the environment, right? But it creates a lot of challenges for us as game developers because you know, light is not only a way that that you make environments interesting and you know, kind of visually have contrast, but also just in terms of how you lead players to different places, how you highlight things that are important, how you help orient them in an environment, right? There's all these kind of tricks that we've learned as game developers for you know, 20 years that we use light to help us solve these problems, and we don't have those tools for State of Decay. And so, like Foggy was just saying, right, even the lights of the lit up eyes of the zombies is a tool that we can use to help, you know, draw players places, let them see where infestations are, and add that kind of creepiness to the inside of environments that you don't otherwise have the ability to do.
In the base, it's been invaded by a bunch of slow zombies and kind of fast zombies, but they're pretty typical normal zombies. Yeah. In addition to that, though, there was this gaunt, ravaging, super fast zombie. And that's called a feral. Those guys are kind of mutated versions of the existing zombies. They're super fast, incredibly dangerous, and they're going to come out of nowhere. They're incredibly deadly. And so we have those core zombies, and then in addition we have freaks. And the freaks are like we saw in the gameplay trailer, the feral. We have a juggernaut who's this massive zombie near the end of the trailer, and he's huge, hard to kill, very dangerous to groups. So even in multiplayer, they're a huge threat. We also have screamers who bring in other zombies, and we have bloaters who, when they get killed, create this massive area of noxious fumes that are very toxic to actual living people.
So here, guys, we're seeing the base building components of the game. You know, we've been talking about zombies up until this point, but the base building is really the core mechanic of the game in terms of that's how you survive, right?
Right.
So tell us what we're seeing here.
So this is kind of an accelerated version, looking at a base that has been established, and we're scrubbing through here. We see that this community does have some pretty advanced medical facilities. They wouldn't be able to build those without having located a survivor in the world and recruited them into their community that has a strong medical
So they brought this knowledge with them.
They brought this knowledge with them. They were a doctor in a previous life, in their pre-apocalyptic career, or something along those lines. And then you can continue to improve those skills that they have, but they kind of have to come to the table with those to begin with.
Right.
And so it really is about, what is your plan? What is your survival plan? What are you going to do? But then, like any good survival plan, you have to deal with the realities that are presented to you, right? Who do you encounter when you're running around in the world? And what do they bring to the table that's going to change the way your plan from its original form into something that's going to work better now that you've got access to this new skill set?
Well, and even a step further, it often involves you deciding what risks you're willing to take in order to build that specific strategy, right?
What trade-offs?
That's right, yeah. And so very often, For example, one of the mechanics in the game is that as you build facilities, your base makes noise. We always modeled noise in the original State of Decay in terms of what your character was doing at any moment in time, whether you were driving a car, how quickly and recklessly you were searching. But now your base and all the things that go on your base also emit noise. And that can pull all the zombies in the area in, and they'll attack your base. And you stand the very real chance of losing some of the people that are part of your community as they fight off that attack. And so you're always making these trade-offs, right? I would love to be able to build this advanced medical facility or upgrade the bell tower so that I have a sniping platform. I know that makes a lot of noise.
Right.
Am I willing to take that on and risk potentially losing somebody?
Do I have a generator running that's going to give us power and light, but that generator's just noisy as hell.
Right.
It's making noise all day and all night, just bringing zombies nonstop.
So we talked about some of the components. These are just a few of the components. But how do you manage the community in State of Decay 2? Once you've kind of got your framework set up and it's growing, how do you manage it? What's the day-to-day like?
We have a lot more specific information for players to help them understand what's going on, the various inputs and outputs in the community in State of Decay 2.
In terms of the dials to turn up or down and how what this affects that.
And the visibility of what happens when you turn those dials.
Exactly, and what is affecting your community. A big problem we had in State of Decay 1 is people would play the game and they wouldn't understand, why is my community starving?
Yeah.
Where's all the food going? And in State of Decay 2, we tell you very cleanly, this is a screen that gives you a complete breakdown of what's going on with your community, what all the inputs and outputs for your resources are, where all your food going.
Right, what's going on.
What's going on, and where your people are, what they're doing, how you're staffing the various facilities. All of that information is much more cleanly available to players. You can also kick survivors out of your community anytime you want. Before, people had to jump through a lot of hoops to get people to be like, oh, fine, I'm going to leave. And now you can just walk up to somebody that you don't like because they have some negative traits that are,
that you want
unappealing, and you just want them to go. And you can walk up and you can basically that. You tell them to leave, and they will react differently to that based on their personality. Some people will be like, yeah, fine, you're right, I'm out of here. And some people will be like, oh yeah, let's fight.
Wow.
And get into it.
Will you end a life?
Wait,
Or save it?
please.
This is our only one, but we need everybody we've got.
Now I want to talk about what just happened here. We saw one of the characters needed some medical help.
Yeah.
So you can make a decision there to help her or him or not, right?
Right.
So that's kind of heavy.
Yeah. So there's some mysteries that I wanna kind of skirt around a little bit as we're talking about this. But in this game, in State of Decay 2, there are some specific opportunities that present themselves in terms of resources that you have available that are incredibly rare, they're hard to get, or they're hard to make. Mm-hmm. And it can be a very difficult decision for players to have to decide whether or not a character that might be afflicted with something, whether or not to use those valuable resources to keep them around, or if they should save them because what if it happened to this character that I care about so much more?
Right.
So you really have to question the value of what you have versus the people and the situations they find themselves in. And again, the stakes are very high because if you don't take care of that character, they're going to die for real.
The decision is not save or don't save, it's save or kill.
Right.
Yeah.
Very black and white.
Yes.
We certainly saw a lot of the different weapons that you went through, but we also saw some real up close interaction with the zombies. In other words, you can grab them, jump on them, start wailing on them.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that there were a lot more options in terms of how you could engage in combat, and we also wanted to make sure that we were taking advantage of the fact that we now have co-op multiplayer. Mm-hmm. So doing things where you can grab a zombie up and have your buddy come over and take them out in one shot, or hold them and pull them away because they're about to attack your friend. Right. We wanted to make sure that we were taking full advantage of some crowd control things that players might want to be able to do in the context of co-op multiplayer.
And in State of Decay 2, it's often much more important to be able to get through a fight with zombies unscathed, right? You're thinking not just about, am I going to be able to kill them all before they kill me, but can I eliminate this threat while keeping myself as safe as possible? Right. And so the way you fight and the particular skills that you use, there are some moves that are safer ways to dispatch them than others. And as you learn to do those moves, there are other factors in the game that cause you to really want to avoid taking damage or being bitten. And so it's the combat, the kind of close-in combat, is a little more tactical than it used to be. there's also the fact that, you know, again, everything in the world is simulated, everything is modeled. All weapons, including guns, incendiaries, and melee weapons, make noise and cause a ruckus. And there are many times when shooting a gun is absolutely the last resort. Right, you want to get through things making as little noise as possible. By the time you pull out the guns and start blazing, your back is pretty much against the wall, and you're having to bring out everything.
When you pull out the gun, I mean, it may solve one problem, but it may create a series of others, right?
That's right. Yeah, and that's when it's time to pull out that flare gun and ask your buddies to come help you.
Last truck, get in.
Here we're seeing quite a bit of vehicular action, which was a huge part of the first State of Decay. What have you done in State of Decay 2 to up the ante in terms of vehicles?
Sure. We've got more vehicles, upgraded cars. I don't know if I want to dig too deep into those.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. Well, there's sort of apocalypse version cars that we can, you know, fit out with like extra gas tanks and really cool ribbing and like window protectors, and they're heavier, beefier cars that can take a beating. Because this time around, the cars, they can run out of fuel, they can get damaged, and once they're gone, like the people, they're gone for good.
Right.
So having a car that you can upgrade and really mow down most zombies, not all of them, is great to have.
I want to talk about this piece right here, because we see one of the characters being attacked by, what's this guy?
That's the Juggernaut.
That's Juggernaut. He's huge, and he is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And you know, she's doing some combat here. But eventually,
yeah.
Okay, that's permadeath.
Yeah, that's permanent. That's a hungry man having a snack.
Really?
No.
No.
As long as you have a medical facility.
That guy's dead.
Yeah, there we go.
Dead.
So this is again getting into the co-op. We see some of the melee attack, the range combat, and now you know, just getting on top of it and wailing on the back of this. This is stuff you could never do before in State of Decay.
No, absolutely true.
Right. Yeah.
The co-op multiplayer brings a whole new dimension to the game, and it's the most requested feature for State of Decay for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think everybody intuitively understands that when you add something like this into a game that's about characters that you're building up over time that you're really passionate about, that have permadeath, that the idea of having another human player there to watch your back, to help keep you safe, to protect this investment that you have, adds a very rich dimension of interaction for players just automatically. And then being able to rely on somebody, calling Jeff up, because every night when I play State of Decay 2, I call Jeff up and I'm like, hey, jump into my game real quick. I'm working on this thing. I really need some help.
Yeah.
Because I want to protect my investment, but also there's some benefit to you coming into my world, getting some cool stuff and going back to your game.
Well, interesting, in this trailer, there was interesting, for those people that were watching it during the briefing, we saw the male voice, which was the male character, and then that male voice stopped and the female character picked up. So it's clearly the homage to permadeath, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely. Yeah, the idea that now that this character that was so important to your community, that might have been your primary character, your main, to use the parlance, is gone, and you're going to have to move on to another character, and in time you're going to fall in love with that character as well.
I will say the one bummer about permadeath is being torn in half looks fantastic. So,
You're gonna go out in style.
you don't want to see it, but it looks really good.
There's so much going on in this video, and Jeff, you talked about the trailer last year kind of being an homage. I'm sure there's things in this trailer that we missed that people should go back and watch maybe a few, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. There's a lot going on there. Really looking forward to State of Decay 2. So, gentlemen, thank you for...
Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I think it was one of the most informative interviews we've had so far. And they answered a lot of the questions we as players have had about State of Decay 2. So I'm happy that a lot of those things have been answered, but there's still a lot of questions that need answers. So hopefully we get more things like this, or maybe a blog post from Sonya at Undead Labs. At this point, who knows? But hopefully we get something very soon. So I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. I thought it was very informative, and I thought that I just had to bring it to you guys. It was kind of hard for me to even find, so I'm sure a lot of you have missed out on this particular interview. Don't forget to check out our weekly live streams on Wednesday called the Gamescast. Hope to see you there. I love you guys. See you in the next one. Peace.